So the system is built in such a way that even if we improve efficiency, it tends to result into a worsening of the problem. And this has to do with the nature of the system. We call this the Jevons Paradox. If I had more time, I could explain why. But what all of this takes you back to is capitalism. Capitalism is a system that's geared towards accumulation of capital. That is a particular form of growth with a particular set of priorities. And this is the dynamism of the system, but it's almost impossible to make that system work with the kinds of solutions that we need now. In fact, the system itself is at the root of the problem. The system assumes that under capitalism you have to have a 3% rate of growth. That's the historical rate of growth. Anything less than that, or say less than a 2.5% rate of growth in world output is called a world recession, right? And they lay people off, and there's disasters everywhere. The system is built, needs that growth because it's the only way it can generate profits and accumulation. So we're really in a trap in that respect. If you have a 3% rate of growth, then in 1 century the world economy will increase by 16 times. In 2 centuries, it will increase by 250 times, and in 3 centuries, it will increase by 4,000 times. Now, try and figure that in terms of energy use. And now, this is the way the system works, and we have to deal with that. I was going to go into a concept that Marx introduced of the metabolic rift, that we can understand the ecological problem in terms of a rift in metabolism between human beings and the earth. When this is a concept that Marx developed in Capital and is extremely important, and it talks about how the way in which we carry out labor and production, the way in which we relate to the earth, particularly under capitalism, creates ruptures or rifts in natural systems. And we have to understand that. It isn't just a question of the growing of the scale of the system. It's that we've broken the natural relationships. We can see this everywhere we turn, and not just in climate change, but of course, with respect to global warming, we've broken the solar budget. We've used prehistoric carbon. We essentially burn it, and in order to promote production, and we've destroyed the equilibrium in the carbon cycle. And this is a kind of metabolic rift that isn't inherent in the human relation to society, but is very built into our whole system of production. Well, I can't talk much about solutions. I want to remind you, though, this may be in some ways the most efficient system that we've ever seen in terms of expanding productivity, but it's also the most wasteful system that we've ever seen. The levels of waste are immense, and I think most of what we produce is waste. Most of what we produce is useless. And it's a system that's based on enormous inequality. I can't tell you what the inequality in Australia is, but I can tell you about wealth inequality in the United States. In the 1980s, I used to give lectures where we would explain that 1% of the population, the top 1% of the population in the United States, owned more wealth than the bottom 80% of the population. Well, now I've had to change my lecture because those figures are out of date. Now, today, the top 1% of the population in the United States owns twice as much as the bottom 80% of the population. The inequality is absolutely immense. In the United States, you actually have tens of millions of people going hungry. Now, just one last point, and I want to, we're talking about climate change here, but you have to look around and you have to look, we have a world financial system. We have a world financial crisis right now happening. We have an economic recession in the United States. It looks like, if you believe the IMF, we have a world economic recession coming this year. And we have, it's the biggest financial crisis that we've seen since the Great Depression. I can't go into the details, but this is a crisis. And this crisis is more important to the establishment than is global warming. We have a world food crisis right now where the price of rice and wheat has gone up, doubled in the last year or two. And corn and all the basic grains have increased massively in price. So we have riots all over, in places all over the third world right now over food. We have 3 billion people that are suffering food insecurity. We have a water crisis, and we have actually a war taking place over oil. Now, all of these are different crises. You would say that they're not necessarily related to climate change. Actually, they are all related in some way to climate change, but where they really come together is in terms of capitalism. It's the fact that so many people in the world are hungry has to do with the nature of our economic system, our system of power. The same with climate change, the same with water crisis, the same with oil and war. So we have to put these things together. And remember, while we're fighting over saving the earth due to climate change, we have to remember all of these other problems as well, and approach it in a unified way as socialists who also believe in ecological revolution. Thank you.